Everyone, and welcome to Beyond Focus TV. My name is Angie Daniel, and I am the hostess of the show. On tonight's show, we have with us one of the greatest poet readers right here in New York City. She's going to perform for us on tonight's show, and then we're going to see her painting, and we're going to share it with you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'll introduce her to you. We'll be right back.
Dostoevsky said that art and beauty would save the world. And in the midst of human misery and violence and wars, they are the hands that stop the stars from falling and keep hope alive. So on days of despair, on days when all seems dark, when the world pours in and the pain blows words out of my mouth, I look at open windows and running trains with a craving hard to explain. But I rush by quickly, eyes shut tight, and count my breaths. And when I catch a glimpse of myself, a talking shadow in full light, I must seem not knowing my left from my right, always lost. But as I stand here in my age of reckoning, a woman at the end of her history, I tell you, I have found myself. I have found happiness where I did not seek it. And grief has come frequently when I did not expect it, and come to stay. Like an unwelcome guest one cannot turn away. And it has marked me and broken me to make me part of humanity. And I give thanks for the voice I have been given, for the little song I can sing, and for the light I can add to everyone else's, for I have tasted it all, the bitter, the sweet, and what was forbidden me, but I am alive. I am alive, and I have learned to live in this world, which is beautifully hopeless, but hopelessly beautiful. And if I am remembered at all, it will be because whatever else is true or false, and because I have craved its light, I have unflinchingly faced love and embraced it.
This is the way that love began. Spring opened with your name, with pollen-powdered flowers and leaves tangled green in the after scent of rain. Fish flowed as freely as kisses. All bloomed, luminous and startling. A miracle of the world so beautiful.
And welcome back. Before we took a break, I mentioned I was going to introduce to you Ms. Marcelin. Welcome, ma'am.
Angie, this is such a treat to be here. I'm so delighted to be here. I know that the first time we spoke, it felt like it was already family.
Yes, yes.
So thank you so much for having me. And
well, thank you for being here. One of the things that I wanted to mention to the community, what we try to do all the time is to bring new ideas and what is like treasured that are found. To my knowledge, you are one of those treasures that we need to talk about in the community. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your artistic self.
I'm really honored. Thank you so much. I'm a poet, a writer, I'm a painter, I'm an actress. And all these gifts came to me a bit pretty late in my life, and I'm very, very blessed to have had the opportunity to share my love of art with people. And I think this is what my mission is, to make others love poetry and art as much as I do.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that it came on a later time in your life, because from the look of things, I would have said that you probably were an artist from the early on. But what inspired you? What's the one thing that triggered that moment?
I think good artists inspire you. For example, in painting, I was in Mexico and I went to a museum. It was the Rufino Tamayo Museum, a wonderful museum. They call him the painter who has color in his hands. And I saw that, and suddenly I was bowled over, and I said, oh, I'm rushing back to New York to paint.
Really?
So I think some artists just give you permission to do what they are doing and just to enjoy it.
I mean, we don't have a painting right now, but we're going to show a couple of them throughout the show. You have that, you know, what we call the different personalities in your paintings mostly. And for you to say that you just decided one day to do it, at what moment did you feel like, okay, this is how I'm going to express myself to the public?
I think it comes at different moments where you say it comes through the writing.
Okay.
And it comes through the painting, sometimes at the same time, sometimes differently. But it's the work that actually shapes you.
Okay.
It's one thing to have the inspiration, it's one thing to have the desire, but then the arduous work, the time-consuming work is what defines an artist.
Okay.
People don't sit around waiting for that moment of inspiration and then say, oh, I'm a painter. But no, it's the daily grind.
Okay.
And something that's pretty, it's not a very cinematic thing to watch a writer, a poet working. It's hours of writing down a few sentences, then hours correcting that, and hours then erasing it and starting over.
Starting over.
Yeah.
Well, I think in any type of graphic ideas, like if you are gifted like that, I would consider one to have that moment that defines you. And watching you tonight perform, one of the things you talk about a lot in your writings is the woman within you. Can you explain to us what that woman is, or who that woman is? I can see so many different women, but let's just talk about one.
She's a full woman. She's a woman full of life because she's lived. She's a woman who's shared grief and happiness and blessings. And who knows, at that age of reckoning, this is it. What have I left on this earth? What were my traces? What is left behind me to show that I have lived? Let it be seen that I was not a tourist on this earth, but that actually brought something, discovered something, shared something.
Shared something. And at that point, my understanding of that is that we have to make an impact, no matter what we do. Would that be your idea of what you're sharing with the world?
Well, it's either service is the rent you pay for being on this earth, or beauty and art is the rent you pay. But you must bring something to the table.
Okay. You must bring something. I like the idea of beauty and art. You said it is it's what saved the world.
Well, Dostoevsky said that.
Yes,
he said beauty and art would save the world.
What does that mean?
That means
as an artist, to you, like talking to a person like myself who have no idea what it is.
You do know.
I do.
You do, because I know you have a daughter.
Yes.
And that is beauty right there. That is art right there. It is not. I think it was Emerson who said, "You can leave the world better by a healthy child, by a garden that's blooming.
Okay.
But you have brought something. We're living in the midst of chaos and violence and wars and famines and rapes. And if you just focused on that, then there would be nothing to stop you from jumping from a window.
Okay.
Nothing to stop you from jumping in front of a rushing train.
Okay.
But there is the beauty that you see daily as well. Children laughing, someone composing a piece of music that you can sing, lovers in the street. And it's enough.
It's enough.
A blue sky, and it's enough. Flowers, and it's enough.
So it's like taking into account the small stuff, the things that makes us go, that breath of fresh air.
I go, every second, every breath. Every breath is a gift. Every hug from a family member is a gift. Every kiss from my husband is a gift. It's not guaranteed we will be there tomorrow.
So that's
today's the present.
So you live within the present.
Carpe diem.
I love the notion of that. Interestingly enough, you and I, we had a conversation yesterday, and we talked about how it is like life changes moment that makes us different. What makes you different?
I left Haiti. That made me different because I have a very difficult love affair with my country.
Okay.
So leaving it and discovering the world was possible because Haiti is very insular. And when you live in Haiti, you live in a very small circle with a path that's almost already traced for you.
Yes.
You follow the steps of your family.
Yes.
I would not have known, and I would not have been the person I am today.
If you
It does not make me less Haitian. Does not make me love Haiti less. It just means that I have now opened to an entire universe. Was it Shakespeare who said the entire world is stage? The world's my oyster. I'm not circumscribed by boundaries or by frontiers which have been established by men or governments.
Okay.
I'm a citizen of the world.
You're a citizen of the world. With that note, we're going to take a short break. We'll come back. I have another question for you, a good question for you. We'll be right back.
Who owns me? Who owns my laughter? I say no one. A joyousness of bells resounds deep inside me. Innumerable seas rise in me. Wondrous and fierce, the lavishness of my spirit, inexhaustible. I rejoice in the world.
Rain dampens the earth when pleasure comes, a sudden storm. I tremble in the wild wind under an avalanche of leaves, thrown in darkness without a voice, only animal cries and open mouth kisses to silence words and share the blood-red sadness from your glass. You leave, I undress, remove the name you blessed me with, abandon my reflection in the mirror, slide into death on damp sheets. And in my dreams, sweet years come back to me, a blaze of summers and springs, when my dazzled heart could open and close infinitely to the bright noise of naked boys. But love is now this wild night wind, fragrant with rain and roots and earth, shaking trees, rustling leaves. And I don't have the voice to say it, to plead that it be gentle with my obedient soul.
And welcome back. We are here with Miss Michele Marcelin. She's the artist and poet who is just talking about like how life changes you, moments that changes you. And interestingly enough, you mentioned that when you left Haiti, that has changed you as a person. And I could see through your art, I could read it through your books, of all the changes that has happened in your life. Can you tell us about the books that you've written?
Yes, the very first one is called La Désenchantée. In English, it's The Disenchanted. And it is the story of an old woman who is now at the end of her life, in her age of reckoning, and she is reliving all the experiences that made up that life. It was a life in Haiti, it was a life under the Duvalier dictatorship, it was a life with family secrets, and that was followed by 2 books that were published simultaneously. One in English that is a book of poetry and prose called Lost and Found, the Book of Love. And the other one is called Amour en Bagatelle, which
I like Amour en Bagatelle.
Yeah, which is translated as Love and Trifles.
Yes.
Because everything that is not love is trifle.
I hear you. Where do you... Okay, I'll rewrite the question because I want it to be something that's authentic. What would you say is have been so far in your career as your moment? The proudest moment of your career thus far?
Has to be career. I don't know if I make differences between career and life. I can't tell you one particular moment, but I do love being on stage. I love performing poetry. Léo Ferré, who's a great French poet and singer, said poetry should be listened to like music. It should always be spoken, and you should always listen to it and not just merely read it, because as reading it enclosed in this printing in that little square rectangular box, it does not have life, it does not have guts, it does not have sex.
Yes.
So to me, being on stage and having someone come to me after the performance to say to me, I did not think I would love poetry, my wife dragged me, but wow, if this is poetry, then I love it. This is a moment that really nourishes me.
I would say it comes with a sensual idea with it, no?
That poetry is, it's a living thing. It's not a disembodied, at least for me, it's not a cerebral thing.
Okay. You and I talked about how people differentiate poetry from, like, it would be something that is acquired, it's a taste, it's a different taste. And you said to me that poetry is something that we all live.
Oh, we all live it daily.
How do you explain
that? We
live
it daily. When you look at someone you love, and the way you say their name is different, and what you say to them is different. That's poetry right there. When you see your child, and you're touching the neck of your child, and you feel those bones, and you touch that hair, and this is poetry right there. A garden is poetry. People have this idea that you're going to go to a poetry reading and there are going to be people sitting around a table opening a book and reading to you in a very low voice, and you'll fall asleep.
Have a glass of wine. I mean, I thought, like, when I hear about poetry, I'm thinking a glass of wine and probably some chocolate.
Well, that's what Edwige Dantica said about Lost and Found. She said, have a glass of wine and sit with your lover, and your love life will never be the same after you've read those poems. I'm
actually thinking the same thing. I would say I would agree with her. Where are you performing next? Where do you go from here?
Right now I'm writing, so I'm hibernating. I'm not performing, because it's also a very time-consuming thing, and it's hard to disperse your energies, because performing is it's life-giving, but it's also very draining, and it's hard to be writing at the same time, because for writing you really need to concentrate.
Okay. What are the things that you would say after this conversation, as an artist, 1, as a woman, 2, you would want the community to know about you?
That I have come here to live out loud.
Live out loud. I like that. I personally feel like a person like yourself has this creative idea, this creative energy, have come to a place where I feel like we can connect, and understanding that through life we could do so much more. You talk about living, you talk about what's happening in life that's so bad, and then how we can take that and separate the living life and what's happening that's bad. Through you, through art, you mentioned art changes things. we can make the difference. We can see the difference. What would you say as an advice to a younger person that is right now, I would say, probably lost and don't know what to do with themselves?
Well, when I felt lost, and I was in Haiti in my teenage years, and I felt lost, and I felt isolated, and I felt there was no one like me, which is this isolation, I think, which is, it can kill you.
Okay.
What saved me were books. So I would say to anyone, not just children or teenagers, anyone, when you can connect with someone else through what they are going through art, then your life changes because you are no longer alone. You are traveling an entire world, and you are going into lives, successive lives, that were not accessible to you before. I remember one of the first books I read which turned my life around was Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. I was in the village of Macondo, and I was falling in love with the characters, and I was meandering across that village, and I was no longer in my isolated bubble.
Okay. The last performance that you're going to have for us to close out the night, can you give us a little brief explanation of it and why you wrote it? And then
I wrote it because I am at the age now where I am taking count of what I have done, and that I know that love is what we all live for, and what ultimately is the only important thing in the world. As the book says, it's love and other trifles. Only love is important.
Well, thank you, Ms. Marcelin, for stopping by and reading to us. Actually, you know, I would say speaking to us. I actually love your performance. You were really, really good, and I think people can connect through that. If there's anyone who would like, if anyone would like to get in touch with you, is there a website or number?
Yes, it's called La Douce qui Vient. If you were from the Caribbean, or from
like that
specifically, there were merchants of the fruit called quenep who would go with their basket in their heads, meandering the town and the streets, calling out, La douce qui vient quenep, here comes sweetness, which is what poetry is to me. So the site is called Lidouce, and it's www.lidouce.net, Lidouce.net.
So that'll be LIDOUS.net. Well, this is the end of our show. Thank you for stopping by.
Oh, I thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I know the community is going to enjoy the performances. So right now, enjoy yourself. I will see you next Tuesday, same place, same time. Bye-bye.
Mourir Valérie, son père. Mon journal, la balle de date. Que pourrais-je écrire? Sache déjà. Que devrais-je dire? Que l'on ait déjà entendu. Écoutez ma voix baroque dans le miroir enflé de l'Italie sauvage. Car en rap jazz, je dis ma ville. Rap jazz de Franck Etienne. C'est que les papillons d'éclater la catambre des champs. Tout émaille les paysages cocaïne velés arc-en-ciel. Comme un aigle chouda, qu'a fouillé profond le territoire invisible. Réveiller la sirène, qu'a nagé dans le bassin si volé impossible. Réveiller maîtresse l'eau, maîtresse femme, belle merveille, belle malais. Baignez malais, mignonnet malais, poignez malais. Bébé, malais, poteau, presque à bouillard, Santa Maria, pas qu'à avancer, pas qu'à foncer, pas qu'à compter, pas qu'à piaffer, pas qu'à lander, pas qu'à gronder, pas qu'à ronfler, pas qu'à rêver. bam jam prantan, bam jam prantan, bam jam prantan, bam jam prantan. Yon bel bébé, yon promoti, pa balancer, chauffer, monter, pour déraper, la guerre, pour aucune chaîne, bouline, si on miel, si on donne, si on blanc, si on rouge, si chabine, si on si mini, miel, bonbon, zizi. Les boulets, ma boulée, les zoukés, des zoukés, les béglés, des béglés, les tcha-tcha, wa-tcha-tcha, les palais, des palais, si maillés, sans pitié, le gaïda qui, on musique bling bling, ding, ça complète ma choix pourri, va faire chanter le côté assis. Salvo, dis-moi ça la misère faire. Ça le faire. Dis-moi ça la misère faire. Les salopes t'aiment, maldichons l'aiment, des aliens, des fifarines, des filonèmes, des faux filets, des couronnèmes, des consombrés, des falcachas, des bundarèmes. Pas de marinade, pas de tec. Faut mal chercher côté là, il fait coin. Faut mal chercher côté là, il fait joint. Faut mal chercher côté graine, j'ai loin. Sous vous tralez les vignes, sous vous tralez les coins d'as, sous vous tralez les cassés. Train l'oreille à boyo, à ciguer, sous graine, c'est tout pour ligne, si on miel, sous rail, comme on qui a la maison.